Well, welcome everyone to the 4th episode of Beyond Pink's podcast. I am Jessica Southwick, and I am Beyond Pink's executive director. And so we're happy to have you all tuning in again. Today, I am joined by Jolene Fisher, a national board certified health and wellness coach and owner of No Bad Days. So thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks, Jessica. It's good to be here.
Good. I'm sorry. Jolene will be our keynote speaker at our annual Afternoon of Inspiration luncheon this May. And so this episode will come out after our luncheon, so we won't be spoiling anything by discussing kind of what you're going to talk about at the luncheon. But I do have a few questions I'd like to talk to you about, so if you're ready.
Yeah, let's do it.
So what is your background, and how did you get started as a coach?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to be a doctor from the time I was a little girl. That didn't obviously work out because I'm a health coach, not a doctor. But I ended up going into athletic training, sports medicine. My master's degree is in all those things. And I was then a professor for 12 years at Whitworth and Eastern. And I taught in those professions, and I absolutely loved it. But I got to a point where higher education was no longer where I wanted to be. And I said, I want to get back to working one-on-one with people. And that's what I did. I started No Bad Days in 2014 and just started seeing clients here and there out of my home. And in 2018, I added an in-body scale because I like to look at the clients from a very scientific perspective. You know, we do a lot of talking and getting to know each other too, but I need to have data. I'm a data-driven health coach. And so doing all the things that I had done prior to that, my master's degree being in exercise science, and it just kind of all has fed into kind of what I do now. And I love working one-on-one with women mostly. I do have some male clients, but and I don't work out with them per se. I am a personal trainer as well, but I am a health coach first and foremost. And so a health coach is like a guide on the side. We help people understand their bodies better, can be a advocate for them with their doctors. And I can help them with their meals planning, their exercise planning, all those things. And so that really has been such a fun thing to do. And so I've been doing that for a while now.
That's great.
And just recently, I'm actually doing that just part-time, but the other half of my life is as a women's ministry lead at Valley Real Life Church. So I do kind of both things and strike a balance. And I know we're going to talk about how do you strike a balance when you're busy and working a lot of hours.
You definitely know how that is and how that goes. What is the most common reason or kind of inspiration behind people coming to you for help?
Yeah, so a lot of people who see my ads, they're oftentimes looking for weight loss. And so they come in and they're ready to shed some pounds. But oftentimes they don't realize that there's so much that goes into why those pounds are on their body. It's not just about calories in and calories out and some formula that we can apply to that and they miraculously lose the weight. Although I do have a lot of formulations that I use using the in-body machine and helping them understand how to do that. That's a piece of it. But oftentimes they when they work with me and they become a client, they find that they get so much more than that. It's about their mental health. It's about their spiritual health. And they learn a lot too. And a lot of those gaps are filled in with their knowledge they didn't have before. And I'm teaching them strategies for lifelong health, not just, let's just do this. You want to lose 15 pounds? Okay, that's not what I'm all about. I'm all about, yes, let's do that. But we're also going to be focusing on you as a whole person holistically.
Oh, okay. Well, that's awesome that you're able to do that. That's a little more all-encompassing than maybe some really tough workouts and sweating.
Right. I mean, I don't want to be their health coach for life, right? I just want to be eventually fired because they need to learn how to do the habits that will go with them lifelong into better health for themselves. That translates into better health in their family. Oftentimes when women sign up with me, their husbands lose a lot of weight too because they're making the meals that we're telling them to make and they're eating very anti-inflammatory. And so their just health markers are getting better and all those things. And then they have more energy to work out. Then they have better sleep. And then all those things translate into wanting to create habits of health, that keep going with them. Oftentimes they're like, even if they get off the track a little bit, like that felt so much better than where I was before. I'm going to get back on track a lot faster than maybe in their past, where they get off track and they say, oh, well, I've messed up today. I'm just going to let a whole week go by, or a month or a year. And this all or nothing thinking is something we talk a lot about in health coaching sessions, that it doesn't serve you. And all or nothing thinking is only going to prevent you from having success long-term. Because you can't be like, I'm all in, and then when I can't do that one meal correctly, it's just the whole day's ruined, right? That's that all or nothing thinking we're talking about. It's no, just get right back on track with the next meal. Get right back on track when you get back from your vacation. It's okay. Give yourself grace. And that's hard for women to do, to give themselves grace.
It really is. So you were saying that those relationships aren't, lifelong. How long do you typically work with a client? Is there a normal?
Yeah, I oftentimes work with them for about a year.
Okay.
And after about a year, if they still want to work with me, that's great, because they're getting something out of it that they want to keep going with. Oftentimes they're wanting me to keep eyes on their meal tracking still, or they're enjoying the group coaching calls that we do every other week. They're getting something knowledge-wise out of it. It also may keep them focused on their health. It's just like when you read a good book or a magazine on health, you in that moment feel more focused and attention to something. And I think that those every other week group coaching calls keep them excited and going.
Yeah.
So even though they're not needing to really hone in on the habits anymore, because the habits are in place, they are now just building upon those habits with extra knowledge and feeling like I can do this and I will always be able to do this. So yes, I do have people stay with me because they like that stuff, but typically 4 months to a year.
Oh, that's great. So one thing we're going to discuss at our luncheon is kind of the importance of self-care. And I don't know about you, but that's kind of a topic that has been on people's minds a lot lately, especially in the last several years. I think I hear that phrase a lot more frequently. I see it in articles and things like that. So a lot of people think of self-care as maybe like spa days and relaxation and getting manicures, but there are a lot of ways for people to care for themselves. How would you as a coach define self-care?
Yeah, so I think that you're right. A lot of people think of self-care as these things that I do one time, but it really is just habits built up over time, and it's actionable. Self-care is an action. It's a verb. You have to do something intentional every day that puts your body, mind, spirit, intellect in a place that is focused on something that will help you, maybe even help others. I mean, so we'll talk about that too in a little bit, but just self-care for me is the acronym SIMPLE. So I created the acronym SIMPLE to help my clients just remember something easy. And those 6 pillars, I think of them as pillars, right? Or even silos. If you think of them as empty silos, it's just like in your brain, just be thinking about these 6 silos sitting in front of you. And the first one is S, and that's spiritual. And then the second one is intellect, I. And then M is mindfulness, or mind. And P is the physical body. L is love, relational commitments. And then E is eating healthy. So when we think about our self-care, how are we doing in each of those 6 areas? And if you could rank each one of those, or rate each one and say, in my spiritual life, is this tank empty? Is this silo empty? Or is it full? Is intellect empty, or is it full? And I think of intellect as our jobs and our filling our brains with books and good knowledge. The mindfulness piece being maybe more like meditation and spending time in calm, relaxed states, a lot more to that too. But, and then the physical body is what we oftentimes think about when we think about exercise or treating our body to a pedicure or a massage or whatever, but it goes way beyond that. And we can maybe talk more about that later. Love and relational. How are you doing in all those areas, right? Are there things you need to shore up to get that empty tank to a higher tank? Or are there areas where it's overflowing and some are just struggling? Like for me, I can really be overflowing in the spiritual and intellect area, but be negative in my mindfulness area when I'm like thinking, do I need to just stop?
Yeah.
And like, just stop. Because I'm a go, go, go type person. That's just
Yeah.
my personality. And so does that lack of mindfulness then lead to other areas? Because the mindfulness piece bleeds into all others. When we're not aware of what we're doing and we're subconsciously operating through our day without awareness of how we do things, why we eat when we're emotional, why these triggers are causing us to go smoke a cigarette or have alcohol or do unkind behaviors to ourselves, we need to look at where we're not being mindful. And so that's just bringing a subconscious to the conscious awareness and saying, oh, I had this trigger happen. I got a text message from my friend and it made me emotionally want to go then eat. And then emotionally eating caused me to have this dopamine response, which made me feel good. So then every time I feel stressed, I eat and I feel good, right? And so when we become more aware of these habit loops and triggers that do that, we can become better at caring for our bodies. So self-care is an awareness, but it's also be thinking like, how'd I do in these 6 areas today? Like, just check in with yourself. Say, am I spiritually helping myself today in any way? Do I need to be praying more? Do I need to get into a walk in nature? Do I need to do my yoga? Do I need to be reading a Bible or reading a spiritual text that fills you up? Because it does show that those things help us feel better emotionally, calming the central nervous system down, right? So it's just, check in. How am I doing in these 6 areas?
And do you recommend that check-in daily, weekly?
Daily.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And for me, those are areas that I do. Like I said, the mindfulness one is kind of a area at times, but because I'm always go, go, go. But for me, that one might be more every other day or once a week where I really do mindfully stop and check in with myself. So.
Great. One thing that we've talked a lot about within our organization that kind of came up, especially when we were filming our last testimonial video, was that people, and particularly women, will often put themselves last on their to-do list. So taking care of themselves kind of becomes the last priority, and kind of neglecting those opportunities for self-care. In your interactions with your clients, why do you think that happens?
That's a good question. And I think a lot of them come to me because they finally said enough.
Yeah.
I've been that caretaker for too long, or I've taken care of my kids. They're finally out of the house and now I want to focus on myself. So I'm getting a lot of them on the tail end of it's time for me. And what gets in their way a lot of the times is the distractions of life, the craziness of life, which is maybe someone in your family got sick, or you had to go back to work full time and you didn't expect that. And so now you're working more and you hadn't built those habits of self-care in prior to these life circumstances derailing us. And then we let ourselves just get off track for too long.
Yeah.
And then we finally go, okay, it's time.
Yep.
We get to a place in our lives where we finally say, I need to change. And that could be too late sometimes. And that's the sad part. That we go too far. And I would say my mom is a good example of this. She was diagnosed with a really rare autoimmune disease, and she's now in remission from it because since being diagnosed, she's done all the self-care things she's needed to do, and her markers are beautiful. But prior to that, it was a life of stress. And if we can trace all disease back to one thing, it's inflammation. And inflammation really is caused by stress, and it's caused by other things too. But how do we get inflammation in our body? Oftentimes stress is the root of that. And so in the midst of the busyness of life and the crazies and all the things that happen to us, we need to learn how to manage that stress better. And there are a lot of techniques out there to do that. But how do we, first of all, it comes back to recognition again, bringing it from the subconscious to the conscious. Okay, I know I'm stressed. Now what? Now self-care can be, I need to go find a therapist.
Yeah.
Self-care can be, I need to get the Calm app, download it on my phone and meditate. Or it could be, I need to join a yoga class, or I need to read books because I love reading. Oh, okay, I haven't done that in 10 years. Let me get a book. And just going back to the things that make you happy and calm you down and relax you and finding what that is for you. We all have different things that make us feel good, right?
Yeah.
And give us relaxation, belly breathing, learning techniques of what calms the central nervous system down in a blink of an eye too. Like, you can breathe. We are all breathing right now, but a lot of us are breathing through our shoulders.
Yeah.
We're not breathing through our diaphragm. And when we do that, we stimulate the vagus nerve, which travels from the diaphragm to the brain. And when we breathe through the diaphragm and we tickle that vagus nerve, it tells our brain, oh, we're no longer in fight or flight. Calm down. And it switches us back into resting and digesting within a few seconds. So belly breathing can be one of the most important ways we can just do self-care right now, sitting in a chair.
That seems a lot easier.
It does. Like, there's no excuse for self-care. We just need to redefine what self-care is.
Yeah.
And not be like, oh, I have to make a time for a 1 hour nail appointment.
Yeah.
Like, for me, that's stressful.
It is. It really is.
I have too much going on in my life to sit down to get my nails done. So I buy the stick-on nails and put those on at home. And I'm like, hey, I feel pretty.
Yeah.
I didn't have to go spend an hour. And that makes me happier, and I feel good about that decision, It's weird things that we do to kind of switch it up. But
that makes sense. It's not just one thing. You can incorporate what works for you.
Yeah.
Do you see a shift happening with this trend of self-care? Are you seeing people prioritizing themselves more?
I am seeing a shift. I think that people are being more educated.
Yeah.
So we've got great resources on YouTube and people have been watching them. And, I get clients all the time. I'm like, oh, did you see the latest Dr. Berg, video? And I'm like, yeah, that was a great one. If you want to incorporate that, let's do it. And then I'll track them, how they're doing with it and hold them accountable to the things they say they want to do. Right. I feel like people are good about educating themselves now. And there's more of a mindset on health. I think that the obesity epidemic that we've been feeling is starting to get better because people are more aware. And as a society, we're doing a better job. Now, COVID did a real bad number on people.
Yeah.
It was just being home, that loneliness factor. A lot of people overate and became very heavy, and they want to reverse that. There's just a lot of people who are ready to get out of that funk and get back to being healthy again. And so over and over again, I do hear women, when I ask them, why are you here? What's motivating you? I always make them do a motivator statement. Because at the very beginning, what's your why?
Yeah.
Like, it can't just be to lose 15 pounds. That's not going to keep you around for the long haul, doing the things you need to do on a day-to-day basis to be healthy. And oftentimes it comes back to, I just want to be healthy long-term. I want to be here for my grandkids. I want to be able to get on the floor and get back up. So it goes way beyond weight loss at that point. And even though that's what they came to see me for, they get way more out of it because they dig deeper. Okay, this is not just about weight loss. It's about having my heart work better for the long term, seeing my visceral fat decrease, seeing these markers of health completely change because I'm focused on me in multiple areas.
Wow. What do you feel is like the most common barrier that you see to people kind of taking the time to take care of themselves?
Well, their excuse is time.
Yeah.
But that really isn't an excuse if we know how to budget our time better. And so that's just getting to bed earlier, right? So that they can wake up earlier. They need to understand how their day is laid out. And so oftentimes I'll have them in week 2 of my course, Healthy Body, Happy Mind, which is a course all of them take when they're working with me. Week 2, they have to do a kind of a catalog of their day's events. So it's an actual from morning till evening, put everything down that you're doing that day. And that has the 6 simple areas on that day too. Did you do all 6? Check the box kind of a thing. And they need to see where they're budgeting their time. And so oftentimes they do find that they can wake up a little earlier, or that oh yeah, my kids don't get up till 7. So if I got up at 6, that would give me an hour to myself. And that would make me feel good for the rest of the day. It'd give me energy. Or I can work out for 30 minutes. And then I'd have 30 minutes to prep their lunches and get them out the door. So we just have to do a budget analysis on their time.
Yeah.
And then say, really, that's not the excuse when we break it down. We just need to brainstorm how to make this work better for you.
Yeah.
And I think another valid excuse is their health.
Yeah.
Prevents them from being able to exercise. A lot of people come to me with back pain, shoulder problems. They can't just go after the workout like they'd like to, and that prevents them from maybe accelerating the weight loss. Stress is another really big barrier to getting the self-care that they need, because they are kind of stuck in this cycle of stress. And I recently just had a client she's doing her master's degree, and we've worked with each other for a year now. And she just recently went to a doctor, and the doctor said, you can't lose weight right now. There's no possible way your body will release this fat when you're under the type of stress you're under. And she had done a Dutch test, which showed her hormone levels and where her cortisol levels were, her stress levels were. They weren't at a place where her body would actually release fat. Wow. And so to be told you can't lose weight right now until your master's degree is over, that's okay, because she was able to finally get an answer as to why she couldn't lose the weight. And it took us a while, because we had to really diagnose, why are you not able to, despite everything that we're doing with you? And it was a good revelation for her, because now she's able to focus on meditation. She's able to focus on other areas of self-care besides the physical body. She's now focusing on her mindset, her stress levels, the coping mechanisms to reduce that cortisol in her body. And so that when she's ready to finish her master's and in the fall get back to weight loss again, she'll have all the strategies she's learned, and she can just go right into it. But it's kind of interesting how there's physical barriers to being able to do the self-care that we want to do. The psychological barriers. Some women are depressed when they come and see me. Oftentimes they're seeing a counselor at the same time they're seeing me. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Because they're working with their counselor on other things. And then we can work with them on the day-to-day strategy of how to incorporate healthy lifestyles into that. But then if you're depressed, you oftentimes don't want to.
Yeah.
So, you need to, but you don't have the want to. The motivation is super low, and that's another barrier.
Wow. Makes it a little hard when you think about all those things that can kind of stack up almost against you.
Yeah. And it's just, for one client and 2 clients in particular that I have, they're both in a depressed state, and the reason for that is because of their family life. And you can't change that. You can't change the kids that you have that are autistic or that have ADHD or whatever that's causing you to constantly have to devote all of your time and energy to those kids. So they've come to me because they want to incorporate healthy lifestyle into their life amidst the stress, right? And it's been very hard for them. So what I've done is recently connected the 2 of them. And they actually live in the same neighborhood. And so they met today, actually.
That's great.
And they're going to go on walks together. And they have very similar stories with their sons. And so it's like so cool to see how God can work in the details and be like, no, we're going to make these connections. These women need each other. We need community.
Yeah.
So I think when you feel like you're failing in some areas of life, community can be the one thing you haven't maybe plugged into in terms of your self-care. That could be the thing that lifts you up out of the darkness and gets you into where you need to be. But when you're in a good place, like if you are in a good place, Jessica, or I'm in a good place, this is a time when we need to be the ones reaching out to our community and saying, maybe we're the answer to someone's prayer or need for help.
Yeah.
Because if we're in a good place, we should be giving back. We shouldn't just continue to devote all my time to myself, me, right?
Yeah.
Self-care can be an idol. It can be something we spend way too much time on if we have too much time to spend on it. So it can go the opposite direction in terms of, I'm doing too much for myself and not enough for society or for other people. So we kind of need to look inward again on that and say, where can I be giving back? Maybe Beyond Pink is an organization you can give back to, right? It's like, if you've got the time and the margin, people need you out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that don't have that time and margin. Maybe you could be the answer to that person's need and where community can really come in to play.
That's a great way to think about it. And we always need help if anyone's.
Oh yeah, you just don't ask for it.
Yeah.
Most people don't. And so what if somebody reached out to you and said, "What do you need right now?"
Yeah.
It's like my two clients who have the boys that are in a really hard place. If they were to be asked, "What do you need?" Maybe they wouldn't say they need anything. They're just so tired right now. But just knowing that somebody's asking them and that they have resources, right? That's another area of self-care I think a lot of us don't think about is if somebody asks you, "Do you need something?" Part of that self-care is saying yes.
Yeah.
And not putting the pride on and saying, I'm okay, everything's fine. Like, no, would it be okay if maybe I took your son for the afternoon and took him to the playground so you could have rest or whatever that might look like.
Yeah, people aren't very good at asking for help. No. And I'm guilty of that myself. So.
But are we also in turn good at looking out for where the help is needed?
That's true.
Or do we have our heads down, just doing our thing without lifting our head up and putting the head on a swivel and saying, where is the need in my community?
Yeah.
And not burning ourselves out, right?
Yeah.
We have to have margin in order to help others. And we need to be in a good place ourselves. But I think that it goes both ways.
It does, yeah. What are strategies that people can implement in their day-to-day to kind of incorporate self-care, especially if it's something they've been neglecting for a long time?
Yeah.
Just something simple.
Yeah. Funny you should say simple.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you think about that word, the spiritual aspect. What can we do daily there? My husband and I wake up every morning at 6 a.m. and the first thing we do is we read the Bible together. And that's our spiritual time and a time together. And then we can talk about that and pray together. By 6:30, we're up and out of bed. So we listen to it while we're still laying in bed. We get up out of bed at 6:30. And then the I is intellect, right? Like that comes for me sometimes later in the day. Yeah. I like to listen to podcasts or I like to get Audible going. Or if you don't have Audible, can't afford it, you can do the Libby app, which is a free app the library provides. We all have library card, can get a library card, and you can get downloaded books and audio books from Libby for free. And so that's how I like to get a lot of intellect in. Sometimes I'll just watch YouTube when I'm in the sauna. Yeah. So we have a sauna at our house. A lot of saunas are at the gyms. Yeah. And if you have a gym membership and you have access to a sauna, use it. Use it as often as you can. Wow. It's one of the best ways to help your body to up not only your cardiovascular health, but your detoxification and help with heat shock proteins to help your body fight off bad things. And it's good for you. So I sit in my sauna probably 3 times a week and I'll do some kind of self-care while I'm in the sauna. So I don't watch a show. Yeah. I usually will put the Pause app on, which is an app that's kind of like the Calm app or the Calm app, or I'll listen to music, I'll read, or I'll listen to a YouTube that's intellectually based to learn something. That's great. And then when we think about mindfulness, that's kind of my mindful time, right? It's like I said, I don't do it that often. I do it like a couple times a week. Yeah. For me, mindfulness it can just be a day-to-day thing where you're thinking about, like last night I was like, oh, I'm preparing for this podcast, and I was thinking about a glass of wine and I'm like, no, I don't, you just talk to yourself, right? Yeah. How do we find ourselves? We're talking to ourselves. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do a glass of wine. I might not sleep as good. Yeah. And I want to be on point for tomorrow. And I know I'm fasting today, which I am. And I don't want that to, why would I put some toxin in my body when I'm about to fast? So that's the mindfulness we're talking about. Talking to yourself, being aware of our decisions and saying, no, look into the next day. What do I have coming up? How are these decisions going to impact the next day? And then how are these decisions going to impact me long term? Yeah. One of the best books that you can read on habit formation is called Atomic Habits by James Clear. Highly, highly recommend it. It's a 5-hour read on Audible. Listen, I should say. And the book is pretty good. I call it the Bible of Habit Change. And so if you are listening to this today and you're looking for a next good book, listen to Atomic Habits, because in there he talks about how our decisions now don't really feel like they impact us. Like I eat a piece of cheesecake, obviously. I mean, it's not going to necessarily impact me even tomorrow. But if I eat one every single day for the next year, I'm going to be 5 pounds heavier at the end of the year, right? So it's such a slow creep that we don't really make decisions right now because that's going to be in the future. And we are like, it's not a big deal. But we need to be thinking about it on the side of health too. It's like if I make the decision right now, today, to be healthier, and his whole thing is 1% better every day. Yeah. If I just get 1% better at that thing every day, then at the end of the year, I'll be 37 times better at that thing, which is a lot better than being 37% worse off, right? So it's like the 1% adds up over time, even though we can't see it in the day. Yeah. So we have to be thinking long-term benefits. And then also for people with the physical health thing, it's like, where are you going to find time for exercise? We know exercise has profound benefits on the body, the brain, aging, all the things. And so no one's going to dispute that exercise is good for you. Yeah. Right. And so you have to find what you like. Yeah. If you like running, go run. If you like weightlifting, go try that. If you don't know what you're doing and it's your first time ever exercising, hire a trainer. Yeah. Right? For me, I don't love exercise. I mean, I'm a personal trainer too, but I don't like it for myself. It's hard. Yeah. We don't like to do hard things, right? We like to avoid anything that causes pain. Yeah. So I have to build a really high degree of accountability into my workouts because if I don't, I know me. We all know ourselves. Yeah. So we have to figure out, okay, knowing me, what do I need to do to build in this highest degree of accountability so I will show up for myself? And so for me, at first, it was hiring but going to a gym that was a small gym where they did 5 people in a class and you worked out together with those 5 people. So small group training. And if I didn't show up, I'd owe them more money. Oh. So if you you're obviously paying your monthly dues, but then if you don't show up, you owe them $20. Oh, wow. So you better show up, right? And so sometimes money can be a motivator when it comes to exercise. Also, I knew I was going to go work out with 5 awesome people every day, And then COVID hit. I was like, oh, great. What am I going to do now? Yeah. But I had a downstairs with a gym already, not like a great setup or anything, but I had a few dumbbells and a physio ball and a mat and some things because I wasn't working out at home anymore. I'd gotten rid of a lot of that stuff. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to put it out there to my No Bad Days community, and I'm going to tell them that I'm going to work out with them 5 days a week, every morning at 8:30 a.m. So if I get up, because it was COVID, everyone was sleeping in, right? I'm like, we don't have anywhere to be. Some people had to work online, whatever, but I'm like 8:30, that sounds good. That way I can sleep in and then I can get up and I know I have to be online. So I was doing Facebook Lives through a Facebook community, and I have done that for 3 years now. Wow. And I still do it to this day, although it's now for free on YouTube. Yeah. So people can go to No Bad Days Health and Wellness on YouTube and find my workouts every single day there. So that's been kind of fun. So that's how I keep myself accountable. Yeah. I know I have to show up for people. And they're there when I turn on live and I'm going and doing the thing and get the like, hey, good morning, and you're like, oh, okay, this is why I do this. And another thing is we need to know what motivates us, right? It's like, I love music. So if I put in my earbuds and I know these gals and guys are watching, that motivates me. Yeah. And even though I'm going into it going, okay, but so is that a friend? Is it hiring a trainer? Who keeps you accountable? Yeah. Because if you can't keep yourself accountable, you need somebody else to help you do it for a while until you it's kind of like the training wheels, Yeah. Yeah, it's a perfect until analogy. You can go off on your own. Yeah. Yeah. Those are great tips because that's the hardest thing is to start it being a habit and making it part of your daily life. And then love and relationships, which is the L in simple. If there's problems there, unforgiveness, or you're dealing with a spouse that doesn't support you in anything you do, or you have unresolved something going on, that's going to weigh you down in a lot of ways and can oftentimes lead to the eating habits that are not great. And so just talking that through with somebody, creating strategies around what's important to you in this category. Is it going and having date nights once a month? Is it having fun with some girlfriends? that you haven't seen in a while, and creating some cadence around that gives somebody that love tank fill that they're looking for. I also think that knowing your love languages is one of the most important things you can do in terms of love and relationship category. And it's a gift to yourself. It's a gift to your significant other to know your love language, because if you don't, they can't speak it.
Yeah.
And if you don't know theirs, you can't speak theirs. And that is the one thing I can say just really turned around my marriage about 12, 13 years ago. Mm-hmm. We were really struggling. We read the Love Languages book by Gary Chapman, and it was like a revelation. Like, wow, seriously, that's how you like your, to be loved. And I'm still not great at words of affirmation to my husband, but because words of affirmation is his biggest love language, he's so good at giving it to me, right? Mm-hmm. But it's like my fifth. I don't care about words of affirmation. And so I'm like, okay, thanks. But I need to remember, again, bringing that conscious awareness that this is important to him. And so, Jolene, just say something. Like, you look hot in those jeans. Why is it so hard?
Well, if it's not top of mind for you, it needs to be like a practice.
But isn't that true about everything that we say no to, even though we should be saying yes to it?
Yeah.
We talk ourselves out of it.
We do.
Like, even though it's going to feel good. Yeah. Like, working out.
Yeah.
Sometimes sex. All the things we're like, oh, I know in the end I'm going to be happy I did that. But
exactly. Eating healthy.
Yeah, eating healthy, all the things. Yeah. But we talk ourselves out. So I think that's another thing is mindfulness is, if I know I'm going to talk myself out of this, Mel Robbins wrote a really good book on the 5-second rule. Mm-hmm. She said, if you go longer than 5 seconds thinking about it, you will talk yourself out of it.
Oh, wow.
Our brains are wired to talk ourselves out of things that are hard. And so if we say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, and we just go and do it, like getting out of bed to an alarm. A lot of people have that issue. And hit the snooze, hit the snooze, hit the snooze. But what if that extra 20 minutes could save you so much time, give you time back, and that helps you with your self-care, right? So ultimately, just get up,
Easier said than
You're going to get up anyways.
Yeah.
So what's 10 more minutes? Yeah,
exactly. How are people able to perform well in their professional life and still find time to incorporate kind of their personal needs? So kind of how do people achieve that work-life balance we hear so much about?
Yeah. I know that for me, it's about creating a schedule that getting up at 6 and by 6:30, we're having just a little bit of coffee together, and then he's off to work. And by 7, I'm live now on those workouts at 7 a.m., no longer 8:30. And so I know I've got my spiritual and my physical workouts done by 7:30. And then it's shower, get ready, put on makeup, put on nice clothes, make yourself feel good. Like, don't avoid things like that either, because when you approach your life through, I feel good about myself, I feel clean, I feel presentable, then it just brings on a different air, right, of feeling good. And then you go off and do your day. Now, where people sometimes get messed up here is because they don't have a routine to their day.
Yeah.
When you're in busy life, you oftentimes do better at self-care or doing things because you're scheduled. And you know when you're done with something, and when you know your margins of time better.
Yeah.
When you don't have anything going on in the day and the day is in front of you, oftentimes you get way less done and don't do the things that you know you need to do. And we can pass the time just doing things that aren't important, right? So again, going back to that budgeting of your time.
Yeah.
Do a budget inventory and see where you're spending your time. You don't have to show anyone.
Yeah.
Just do it for yourself and say, yeah, I'm spending a lot of time watching Netflix and folding the clothes at the same time. Maybe if I just shut off Netflix and listen to a good book on Audible while I'm folding the clothes, I could get it done a lot faster, and then I can move on to getting my 30-minute workout in.
Yeah.
Or whatever that may be. So we know we can fit it in. We just need to budget better.
Yeah. That is a hard one too.
Yeah.
I understand that.
But sometimes you need to talk that through with a health coach, a life coach, a counselor, and say, I'm not doing a good job of budgeting my time. Could you help me here? It's not hard for me to do that. I do that all the time with meals.
Yeah.
Like, go ahead and put all your food into this food log, because I'm going to analyze it and I'm going to show you how we can budget these numbers better. Not that you have to take out all the foods you enjoy in life, but we're going to change the macros around, the numbers around.
Yeah.
So, same with a budget for time, right?
Yeah.
We're going to change this around a little bit and see how this feels for you.
Yeah. Interesting. So if people could take away just one fact about self-care or taking care of themselves, what would you want them to know and understand?
I would want them to know that self-care is an intentional act of self-love. That it is intentional because you have to do it. You can't just sit there and hope that it happens to you. You do have to put action behind it. And when you can't do that, you need to get some help, right?
Yeah.
Like, you need to know your limitations, and you need to know where accountability you need and ask for that assistance.
Yeah.
So just knowing that it's self-love, that if we burn ourselves out or work to the margins of our life so much so that we can't incorporate self-care, the alternative to that is disease. Because we're stressed, we're inflamed, and we may get an autoimmune disease. We already know autoimmune disease is like the third leading cause of death in the United States, behind cardiovascular death and cancer. And so when we look at what's the cause of a lot of those autoimmune diseases, it's our immune system's attacking something in our body. And why is that?
Yeah.
It's because there's so much stress going on. Why can't I lose weight? Well, it's oftentimes due to the fact that we're under a lot of stress. And so that's, if I could leave you guys with anything, is just really paying attention to how you're living your life. What do I need to change? Really get real with yourself, because if you don't, a doctor will get real with you. And you're probably not going to like the answer or the diagnosis when you don't start something now. In fact, today I was just with a friend at a doctor's appointment, and I found out yesterday that she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she's a really good friend. And I reached out to her and I said, hey, when's your next doctor's appointment? I want to go with you. And I want to be there for you, not only as your friend, but I want to listen to what the doctor's saying and be able to help translate some of that for you.
Yeah.
And so we went this morning, and it was like a fire hose of information.
Oh, I'm sure.
And not that she's bad at self-care. She's actually pretty good at it. And she sees doctors for so many other things, but she neglected to get a mammogram in the last 10 years. And she's 48 years old. And so if I could leave you guys with anything, it's like self-care goes so far beyond, like, again, the nail appointments and the massages. It is about taking care of the things that we know we need to take care of. And oftentimes where Beyond Pink comes in, making that appointment. Just open your phone and make the darn appointment, right?
Exactly.
Like, and then once it's on the schedule, we do things that are on our schedule. Usually we usually don't drop the ball on those things. And then we show up, we do the test, right? And then we get the results and we can do something about that. But you don't want to be my friend where you've gone 10 years without getting any testing done.
Yeah.
And I love Beyond Pink and all the things that they do too. And there's a wealth of information that comes with those tests that you guys do. It's not just, oh, here you go. Here's your colors. You're hot in the region of whatever. Like, I get to know more about me and how I can change my nutrition and work with the naturopath that you guys are partnered with and get deeper into my physical body, which then starts to bleed out into other areas of where I can help myself. And it kind of, so it just starts with saying yes to something. Yeah. Right. And then that kind of leads to others. That was a long answer to your question.
That's perfect. It's a good thing to keep in mind. And I hope your friend ends up beating this. And
she will be cancer-free after her mastectomy, which is going to be scheduled for in the next 3 weeks. So it's a ductal carcinoma in situ. Okay. Does that sound right?
Yeah, very much so. It's pretty common.
And it's not spread. So
that's good.
No chemo, no radiation. So, to be that blessed to have not done a mammogram for 10 years and only be in this stage is incredible. And another thing that's interesting is she has been treated for over a long haul last couple years with long haulers COVID, and her body has just not responded to a lot of the supplements and treatment. And the doctor now thinks that it was because she's had cancer forming in her body that she didn't know of. which is to why her body hasn't responded well to some of the treatments for the other things that are wrong with her. And so they think that recognizing that and having the mastectomy and getting the cancer out of her body will cause her body to calm down and no longer be under fight or flight all the time and trying to fight off that cancer. So it's interesting, it brings you down different rabbit holes you never really wanted to go on.
Yeah. Changes the priorities a little bit.
Yeah. So that's why, now is the time.
Yeah.
Guys, if you're listening to this and you haven't had your breast checked in a while, now is the time.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
not just about our breasts, it's about all those things that our doctors can do. I'm always surprised too when people come to me and I'm like, when was the last time you got your blood work done? And they're like, ooh, I don't know, 5 years? Like, okay, you need to do that first. I want to see where we're at with all of your blood work. Not only do I want to just look at it, I might want to talk to your doctor about that.
Yeah.
I also want to see if we do work together, how do these numbers change too?
Yeah.
Because then we can celebrate that and say, there's been more changes than just weight loss.
Yeah.
You've really reversed your cardiovascular risks or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's all encompassing.
it is.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming.
Yes, you're welcome.
And even though this will air after our luncheon, I'm very excited for the luncheon and to see you speak to all of our guests. That's going to be great.
It will be good. I'm excited too.
Me too. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Jessica.